The next person that we're going to bring out is Ken Walker. And actually, Ken Walker is probably my Matt Damon because last year he was supposed to be on the show, and we had to bump him. So throughout the year, I said, if we do this again, I'll make sure that you're the first person, or at least the second person to speak. So without further ado, Ken Walker of Campbell Ewald.
Good morning, everyone. How y'all doing? Good. Thank you, Creed. I really appreciate it. I want to commend the efforts here at College for Creative Studies and Creed and all the work that you've done. Can we give him a round of applause? Thank you. So like Creed was saying, I am a strategic planner at Campbell Ewald. We are an advertising agency located right here in Detroit, also in LA and New York. My role there is strategic planner of diversity and cultural insights. But when I explain who I am, that's my title. Who I am a creative-minded entrepreneur, and I am also a change agent. So that's how I describe myself, but my job there is in strategic planning. Advertising. Advertising. So everyone here, who thinks they know exactly what advertising is, all the functions, how it works, the different jobs? Show of hands. You can be honest if you don't. So exactly, it's an industry that I came upon when I think it was around my junior year of college. I went to Michigan State from 2009 to 2015. Go Green! We got a Spartan here. But it's an industry that was talked about a lot in my last 2 years of college. But then I realized a lot of the skill sets, a lot of my interests definitely aligned with job opportunities. So I was like a lot of you, where I was in high school and I was told to, oh, you're good at math, you should go and be a businessman, or you're really good at biology, you should go be a pediatrician. But I was told a lot of that in my last 2 years of high school. But it was in that last year that I actually went to Michigan State for pre-med to be a doctor. I was going to be a pediatrician. I changed my major after 2 weeks. It just was not going to happen. But I realized that I was trying to pursue job opportunities and career options and paths that aligned with what my parents, a lot of my mentors, and a lot of my teachers were telling me to do. So I had to realize and get centered on what was I interested in, and a lot of that came to advertising. But it is an industry that does lack diversity. I lead a lot of the diversity efforts at the job I work in, but it is an industry that is, I can be very frank, it's terrible. Only less than 4.9% of African Americans make up roles in advertising and PR. It's an industry that's rooted in the arts. We know that's part of our culture, right? You don't have to teach us arts. We love arts. We love to execute things along the arts. We express ourselves through arts and music. But it's an industry that prides itself on the arts, but has the lowest representation of people of color. So today, I wanted to, I've told you a little bit about the company. I want to tell you a little bit about my journey, but then I really want to talk to you guys about some of your skill sets, and that's why I titled this Inspired Creativity. So Campbell Ewald is an advertising firm. We're about 105 years old. I started there in 2014, so it'll be 4 years this June. There I do strategic planning. I lead all diversity and inclusion efforts. I do a lot of outreach with a lot of college students to get them jobs, so helping with recruiting. But also traveling. I travel a lot because we have 3 offices, but also if there are like other meetings, career fairs, a lot of different traveling. So it's a really a great opportunity for me to have exposure to different people, different environments, but I do center around being strategic in everything that I execute. So I want to show you guys a short agency reel. This is an advertising agency that is pretty large, so you will see clients from Motor City, the Lions, I Love New York, a lot of different brands that you have seen. So I want to show you just something some of the work that we actually produce as a company. So cool stuff, right? Um, so in my current job, I worked on a few of those things that you saw. So Travelocity, I worked on that account from 2015 to like late last year. So I actually built the whole strategy for Wonder Wisely was the tagline that we created. So everybody's familiar with the roaming gnome, right? So we actually changed a lot of his tone as a character for the brand. The last agency, they like would have him on Instagram in bikinis and stuff, and it didn't fit the brand. So we made him the wisest traveler there is. So if you watch any commercial, it's very poetic. It inspires you to want to go travel, which is it's about a journey versus just booking the trip. But with that experience, we actually have the life-size gnome, the ones you see in the commercials, actually at our office. So there's actually me on a way to a dinner party with the clients, and I actually had to put them in the front seat with the seatbelt because they have etiquette of how you can actually carry them, right? And then I do a lot of work with strategy. So to the bottom left, we create these consumer experience journey maps where we visualize data about consumers for a brand, and we pinpoint things that the client should do to execute, and then they give us a budget, and then we figure out how we're going to execute it based on their behaviors. The second image to the right at the top is actually me receiving an award for a lot of the diversity initiatives that we've done for our company. To the far right, I actually won an award last November from the 3% conference. It's a global conference all about diversity and inclusion. It started actually years ago from Kat Gordon, who was a lead creative at an agency, and she realized that only 3% of women made up creative roles in advertising. So very male and white dominated is what it is. But she created that platform, and it actually evolved from just being about women in creative roles to now just gender and sexuality, race, backgrounds. So it's really just all about, it's a diversity initiative. The middle picture at the bottom is actually me traveling. So I take those pictures probably every time I travel out the windows. And then the bottom right is actually me at the headquarters for Harley Davidson. So a lot of your clients, when you're being immersed on their brand, you may actually go to their headquarters. They may have you try out a new product. A lot of the things that we saw for that brand, they were new bikes that weren't produced yet, and we signed over these legal documents. I couldn't talk about it, so it's really cool stuff. So that's a lot of the work I do in a nutshell. Here are some of the brands that I worked on. But my journey, it really started, as I was saying earlier, when I was in college and not knowing how to utilize a lot of my personal talents and my experiences and those skills that I knew I had in me when I was a child. So I knew I wanted to go into fashion. I knew I wanted to work in music. I wanted to be a businessman. I wanted to do all these different things. And I had this huge vision when I was 9 years old. I remember writing it up in this notebook. But when I went to high school, it was an art school, DSA. We have anybody from DSA here? Yeah. So I went to DSA in 2005, and I graduated in 2009. When I went to DSA, it was actually a counselor I had in middle school who told me about different high schools in the Detroit area. So what they did is they interviewed of us, and they asked us, what do you want to do when you grow up? And at the time, I wanted to be a music producer. I actually have a very musical family. My great uncle was in the Motown group, the Four Tops. His name was Levi Stubbs. Thank you. I can't sing though, so I'm not gonna sing for y'all. But that was ingrained in me so early on, but at the time I really wanted to go into music production. I loved beats, I loved listening to lyrics. I was like, how can I do this as a job? How can I be the next Timberland, the next Swiss Beats? I wanted to do those things. And I remember she told me about Detroit School of Arts, where they had a music production program that I could do in high school. Then I went to DSA, and I sucked at producing. I could not make a beat for the life of me. But we learned everything from garage band, piano, but it wasn't something I was good at. It was something I liked. But I remember fashion, business, wanting to communicate consumer behavior and looking at research. Those were skill sets that I loved to do. It was something I was good at, but I loved to do those things, and I didn't have a lot of creative outlets. A lot of my friends and my colleagues at the time, they had talents like singing, where they were in vocal classes. Some of them were singing at their church, and some of them were photographers. They would have their ability to learn how to do that, but I didn't have an outlet for a lot of those skills that I knew I had. So when I went to college and thought I was going to be a doctor, and that didn't work out, it started when I changed my major to advertising, and I just fell in love with understanding how to use consumer research to drive strategies and create campaigns and commercials and all these amazing things that you see every day. So I got an internship at this very small agency. I graduated in 2014. I started at Campbell Ewald as an intern. Another key word that I want to bring up, intern, you're going to intern probably all your life until you get that first job. I was told to always get a paid internship, so I made sure that that was my focus. So I treated it better. When you're doing something for free and you're learning about it, I think you don't take it as serious, especially when you're young. But a lot of what I heard in college was, after you graduate, you're probably still gonna have to do an internship. I'm like, no, I have a degree now. Like, they're gonna give me a job. And I actually started at Campbell Ewald as an intern on Cadillac, on that account. And we built this global strategy for the brand, and it was in 3 months in that internship that they gave me a job. So intern as much as you can, even if you find opportunities while you're in high school, when you get to college, after you graduate from college, still intern, because you never know who you may have an ability to connect with doing that program and actually get you a job. So that's kind of like the route I took to get into the agency. We lost our first account, Cadillac, when I was about 9 months into that role. I came back and actually helped them retain business. So I helped them with pitches for Travelocity, to Harley Davidson's, a lot of those brands that you saw in that video. And then diversity and inclusion, it kind of just came on my lap 2 years ago, where there was issues with a racial incident that actually happened at our agency, where they were kind of just in a PR crisis of how do we alleviate these issues where people think that our agency is racist because of the wrongdoing of one employee. And that's when Black Lives Matter, it was a big topic 2 years ago. And those are things that I talk about to my Black counterparts, my friends, my family. But when I come to a predominantly white space where I don't see myself reflected, I'm code switching. I'm fitting in the mode. I'm not talking about things that really impact me and people that look like me. But I was empowered when I talked to my boss about it, and she was like, well, let's do something in an office about it, because I know it's something, it's topical, it's something that I know they're seeing on the news, but why are we not talking about it at the job? So that's kind of how it happened. And so I created initiatives like that, where we brought in thought leaders and speakers in. Chioke McRae, who's actually here, there he is back there. He was one of our speakers, but he does a lot of great initiatives for a lot of our youth of color. So those are things I did that evolved me, and they actually made it a part of my role, and it just got really busy. So then, in my last year, this past year, after talking to Creed, we were talking about this presentation last year up until now, and I got focused on a lot of those skills that I told you about earlier: fashion, music, all those things that I love. And I was trying to apply that to my job in advertising. So knowing that those are my interests, did I say anything about my job that really focuses on those skills? Not at all, right? But the ability to do research, the ability to be creative, and using the culture of music and fashion, all these different things. And some extent, I get to do that at my job, but there still are those limitations. But I want to talk to you guys about discovering skills. This happens very early on in our lives. As kids, we know what we're good at. We know what we have a talent of. We know what things we would love to do one day and make money to do it. If you can sing, you're like, I'm gonna be the next Beyonce. So you're, got the hairbrush, you're in the mirror, you're singing like her, and you find opportunities to give you a stage to perform on. And then you hope to get a record deal, right? And then you become successful, you have experiences, you get the Grammys, and that's the story, right? But we know that that road is not straight at all. There are things that are in your way. There are people that are going to tell you not to do it, but especially when it comes to the arts. The arts is something that is always deemed, you're not going to make money doing that. So get a business degree and then do that on the side. So that was a lot of what a lot of my peers experienced after they graduated from DSA. One is a songwriter she co-wrote a song for Nicki Minaj in LA just when she moved out there. One is working at CBS on a production crew for The Talk because she was into photography and video. So I have a lot of friends that are glowing up, doing some great things with their skills. So talking about skills, I want to focus on three people that utilize their skills. They knew them early on in their lives, but I want to see if you guys know who these people are. So our first one, anybody know who that is? LeBron. So LeBron, star athlete, one of the best players in the world. He knew early on, I'm good at basketball, and his career did not start in the NBA. It started at that age, very young. And he utilized a lot of discipline and a lot of those opportunities that he had in high school to evolve to become who he is today. So who's this person? See if y'all know this one now. Oh, Obama? No, that ain't Obama. Anybody know who it is? Spike Lee. So Spike Lee, another incredible person. He started very young, around 20 years old when he created his first amateur films. He is a renowned producer, director, screenwriter. He focuses a lot of his films around racial injustice. Everybody's seen Do the Right Thing, Crooklyn, one of my favorite movies. But it started very early for him. And then I have one more. Who's this? Who? John Legend. John Legend is a Grammy award-winning singer, songwriter, pianist. Another individual who knew very early on that he had a skill for singing. He would sing in church, went to college, and then became who he was in 2005. A lot of them have these experiences where success for them, you saw it when Spike Lee had his first film. You saw LeBron when he won the championship with Miami. It wasn't at Cleveland first. But you saw the success. You don't know the process, the amount of drive that they have to keep pushing for something that they're good at. So this is a short clip that John Legend actually did where he talks about this very same thing of really realizing that success is not something to look at from the facade. Look at the process that goes along with that.
The thing is, every successful person has failed at what they love to do before. I've been unsuccessful in my career. You just didn't know about it because I wasn't famous yet, and I was trying to be famous. I was trying to get a record deal for 6 years, and I kept getting turned down. And any successful person even though it seems like everything just happened for them, it usually was preceded by a bunch of failure, or at least a significant amount. But the great ones aren't the ones that don't fail. They're the ones that learn from their failure, and they keep going, and they're persistent, and they're tenacious. And for me, I was trying to get a record deal from 98 to 2004. And I got turned down by every major record label, including the one I'm signed to now. And for me, that means that even when you hear no, you have to keep going through all those no's until you get to yes. And with learning something new, I think it's the same principle. When I was younger, I didn't really know that you could just get better at things. Because I think we're so used to the idea that you're talented at something and it's sort of fixed, The idea that, oh, he's just a good singer, And even with singing, I've gotten better at singing as I've gotten older. I wasn't singing in a way that was sustainable, and I wasn't breathing right. I wasn't doing a bunch of things correctly. I realized that there was a ceiling that I couldn't crack through unless I actually studied and worked under a coach to get better. And this idea that things are just fixed is proven not to be the case. you can get better at things, you can grow. And even people that are innately talented still need to go beyond that basic talent that they have and cultivate it.
All right. So wise words, right? So a lot of those examples, those three people I showed you, they all knew very early on. John Legend knew when he was singing in church that I'm going to be a singer one day. He learned piano. LeBron James, he was a kid when he had his first basketball. I knew he was going to be a star one day. Spike Lee, same, he knew very early on, but utilized experiences that he had in his early 20s to actually start to execute a lot of those different things that he wanted to do. But the opportunities, those are really how they evolved to who they are. John Legend had the opportunity to write. He wrote a lot of songs before he was John Legend. His name is John Stevens. He became John Legend after meeting Kanye West. But this is an image of Kanye West in 2003, before College Dropout came out. That's John Legend in the back corner in the left, on piano, doing vocals in the back of songs that a lot of us probably know and love. But that was his opportunity, and we know that he signed to Kanye's Good Music label, and he is who he is now. LeBron James became a star high school player. He utilized that opportunity, signing up for that team, and became a star player before he was in the NBA. Spike Lee was shooting those short films in his 20s, and finding ways to connect with the big film companies, but no one wanted to buy his scripts because they were just too hard for people to watch. All about racial injustice. Do the Right Thing it took him a long time to get that one produced, so he ended up just shooting it himself. Making the film, getting a team, shot it right there in Bed-Stuy, and really became who he was because he took a risk on himself. And then lastly, the experiences. This is where the success came. Those experiences, getting a first album put out in 2005, Get Lifted. The song I won't sing it, Ordinary People. It's my grandmother's favorite song. That became a hit song for John Legend. Won him Grammys. LeBron James has won trophies, from his skills. And then lastly, Spike Lee, he's won Oscars, Gilded Awards, Golden Globes for a lot of those different things. But it was discovering their skills very early on, having opportunities to utilize those gifts, and then getting experiences that could give them everlasting success. So I leave with this quote: you are the author of your destiny. And I say it especially when you're going into an industry based on the arts. You have people that are going to tell you, here are other opportunities. My mom told me I should have been an engineer. We were in Detroit, it's a big three. I was like, I don't want to be an engineer. I don't like science and math that much. It didn't align with what I wanted to do. But when I took control, I said, no, I'm going to go to Michigan State. Because at the time I was being rebellious. I was going to be a doctor. But even when I did that and I changed my major, she tried to say, oh, I told you so thing. I was like, no, I'm going to do something else in advertising, which was still another industry that my family wasn't aware of. Still to this day, if I tell my grandmother I'm a strategic planner, she don't know what the hell that is. But that is because we don't have a lot of awareness about this industry, and we need more people of color who have skills that are embedded in them. There's a God-given talents that no one needs to teach you: how to draw, how to color, how to have a good eye when you're doing photography. Those are gifts, but we are the authors of our destiny. We control what our destiny is. What I mean? And that's a letter of a number of different experiences that we're going to take to actually execute a lot of those. So this is what I did. The last year, I made the decision. I was really going back and forth with all these different things that I wanted to do, and I went and I found this old notebook that I wrote in when I was 9, and I was like, I'm going to have a clothing brand. I'm going to have my own record label. I'm going to do a lot of community outreach. I'm going to be a speaker. I'm going to be a philanthropist, but I'm going to start with fashion. And I wrote in the notebook, it was K Walker Apparel. And in college, in my last year, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this brand, one day, I don't know when. In 2012, 2 years before I graduated, I took a study abroad trip to Italy. And it was with a lot of my college professors and 12 of us students. And it just came out of nowhere. I said, I have to go into fashion. I have to find some way to go into fashion. And when I started to work in the advertising industry, I was like, I'm going to do it eventually. But then it was definitely something that takes a lot of investment, a lot of time. So now, you guys are the first to know I'm actually launching my clothing brand next month. Thank you. And this is based on utilizing those skills, utilizing those gifts that I know I had to go into fashion. I'm utilizing everything I learned in advertising. I know everything about my consumer. I know how to market them. I know how to use Instagram. All these different things I learned in the last 4 years at Campbell Ewald. So that's an exciting project that I'm working on now. Been tirelessly busy working on it, visualizing it, putting things on my wall, and really finally taking a leap of faith and taking control of my destiny, because I know I am the author as well. So thank you all. That's it.
We just want to see if anybody has any quick questions we can get the lights, house lights. I see a couple.
Any questions for Ken?
There's a question here. I'm gonna be Wendy Williams. I'm gonna hold it.
So recently, I was given an opportunity I was offered an internship with Ford. So I wanted to know if you had any advice, because I've never really gone and been in like a company surrounding before. Oh, I go to King.
Okay. Is it for like engineering at Ford, or is it?
I'm not sure. I just was offered it. I showed,
Oh, you got an offer? Wow.
Yeah, I showed a guy my art one day. He said, I might have a place for you at Ford, so he gave me.
Yeah, I would say you have an advocate for you, which is important. I was going to get to that point. In any type of entry-level role, find your advocate. Especially as an intern, you're going to get experiences, but at the end, you eventually want a job. Never take an internship just to take it. Take it because you want the job. And if you're not going to get the job, at least you got the experience. That's on your resume. You got those experiences. So I would ask them you should get a job description, and then have a one-on-one with that advocate about what are things that I could do to be great at this. Here are my gifts. Here's what I offer. But here are some things that I would love to do if I have the opportunity to do it. Because when you come in, and I think the stigma that people have heard about interns, like, oh, that's the person that gets the coffee. Like, no, interns are people who soak in all the opportunity. They ask questions to everybody that works there, and they find where they fit. So I would just get a brief job description, and then use that to your benefit to really communicate a lot of things that you want to do.
Thank you.
How much risk-taking is involved in finding success?
A lot. Risk-taking, I would say, okay, when we define risk, success is something where you have to, like I was saying earlier, the discovery phase of knowing what you're good at. I thought I was good at music producing because I liked music producing. When I got the opportunity to go to an art school like DSA, where I got to fiddle around with GarageBand, I was terrible at it. But my interest was good in it. But I had to really understand, what am I good at? And usually that comes from opportunities, and you usually discover what it was. So that's where I'll say risk-taking is when you have an option. Like, am I going to go be a doctor, or am I going to really go to CCS because I have a creative skill that I would like to utilize? That's what I call a risk, is really taking a chance and taking those leaps on what you believe in.
Okay, and we have one more question here.
How you doing? My name is Mr. Duncan. I'm a teacher at DSA. I want to know if you could speak to, considering that Facebook is in the news as of late,
Yeah.
how you as a strategic developer
Planner, yeah.
would utilize Facebook to, I guess, figure out like a core audience and to use that for advertising.
Yeah, so Facebook, everybody knows they had this big debacle now of how they utilize all of our data. I'm gonna just tell y'all, anything you put online is staying there forever. I don't care if you delete it, Snapchat, all that stuff is recorded. But Facebook, they've grown based on consumer data. If you watch, you can even Google this, where they asked Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, how do you guys make money? They have advertisers. They have people like our company who have brands. We place ads on there. That's how they make their revenue. That's why you see ads when you're on a site. That's why when you're on Instagram, you see those sponsored posts. But they utilize our data a lot. So for marketing strategy, when I do strategic planning, it's based on consumer insights. So I look at who is our demographic, how old are they, where do they work, how much money do they make, what are their media consumptions, what are their interests, it's a lot of things, but it's all based on data that they collected from your behaviors. And it's called an MRI report that our media team can print out for me, and I visualize that data into a journey map, and then my client will say, we know that people who are looking to buy a car, someone who's 21, has no knowledge about how to go research a car, they're going on Carfax.com, all these different websites to figure out the used car that they want, and then we say, well, what are other things that consumer is doing in the discovery phase, and a lot of it is research. They're looking online, but also when they get the car at the next stage, what are they doing? They post it on social media. So we should have ads on Snapchat. We should have them on Facebook. We should have them on Instagram, because we know that social media is a driver. It's a communication mechanism that they're using. So a lot of behaviors, they come from the data like a Facebook collects. So be very cautious of what you post. I say utilize the location features very sparingly. Like you'll find people who track where they are at every minute. Post it after you've left the place. There are a lot of crazy people out there that will track you. But yeah, Facebook is a huge one. They own Instagram too. People don't know that. They bought Instagram for $1 billion like 5 years ago. So they own everything. So be careful. Right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ken.
And everyone can follow me on Instagram at the Ken Walker 2 N's. All right, that's it.